Hi, everyone. Thanks for attending another GoDaddy Pro webinar, or if this is your first one, welcome. We're glad to have you. I'm Angela Blake with GoDaddy Pro, and I'm going to be your host today. And then we have Chris Edwards from Data Driven Labs telling us about how to become a web designer, how to start your web design business. So he's going to talk a little bit more about himself and his topic when I introduce him here in a few minutes. Before we get started with that, let's go ahead and do our shameless plug. If anybody wants to share a website in the chat, go ahead and do that so we can see who we've got here today. So while you're working on that, the agenda today is going to be the presentation from Chris, and during that you can participate in the chat as much as you want. And we're going to have a Q&A afterwards, so go ahead and drop your question in the Ask a Question tab that you can find down there at the bottom of the screen at any time during the webinar, and then we'll get to that afterward. You might also see me in chat here and there as well. I'll be the GoDaddy logo, so if you see GoDaddy answering you or posting something in the chat, it's not a strange bot, it's me. I'm a real person. You can talk to me and interact with me there as well. And then after we're done here in a few days, we're going to send out an email with a recap of the webinar and an embedded recording there, so you can watch that as well. Today, I've also got Mike Chorba with me. He hasn't been on camera in a few webinars, so I'm really excited to have him here. I'm going to let him go ahead and introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Chorba. I'm a community manager for GoDaddy Pro. Primarily, I run our GoDaddy Pro handle on Twitter, putting useful, fun, and informative stuff on there for all of you. So hopefully you're already following us. If not, I'll drop a link to our Twitter handle in the chat so you can visit us. I will be not on camera during the presentation. I'm going to drop my video and head over to the chat where I'll be posting some useful links and information as the presentation is going on. As far as the chat goes, if you're the type of person that would prefer not to see the chat on screen while the presentation is underway, you can minimize the chat by clicking on the down arrow at the right-hand corner, and then of course you can always bring it back later. Also, if you have a question during the presentation, you can on the Ask a Question link down near the text entry box at the bottom of your screen. You can put your questions in there, or you can see the questions that other people have asked. And if you like those questions and also want to know the answer, you can like that question, move it up to the top of the list. So I'm really excited about today. I'm going to kill my video here and hand it back over to Angela and Chris. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Chorba. Looks like we've got a few people that I've seen here before. I saw Cami, Ali Newmans. I'm also seeing Jennifer Jones with frozenpeachessites.com and Robert Jacoby with robertjacoby.com in the chat. Thanks for sharing, guys. Now I'm going to go ahead and let Chris introduce himself, and he's just going to go ahead and take it from there.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me today. Today we're going to talk about how to start a web design and web development business. And we're going to talk about, making sure you take those right steps to get started, because that's the most important piece. When you get started, if you don't do all the right steps to start, it can make things a little more difficult as you go down the road. So let's just jump in first and talk a little bit, about me. My name is Chris Edwards. I've been a website developer for about 20 years now. WordPress developer for 8, digital marketer and SEO, doing that for 13 years. And I kind of got started with this as a freelancer, doing this kind of as a side gig, and then slowly turned into full-time freelance, which then turned into creating my own agency. I'm also a GoDaddy Pro ambassador, and one of the things I like to do on the side is I'm also a Disney and Florida blogger, so we talk about a lot of those things, which obviously right now is not a whole lot going on with that, but we do run that and kind of talk about really cool things to do, because I'm here in Orlando, Florida, so we talk about really cool things you could do. And then on top of all of that, I am a dad and to a 14-year-old, so it's the fun of that all the time. So we'll go ahead and just dive in a little bit. And what we're going to do in this webinar is we're going to first talk about what my story is, because I want to tell you what I did and how we got our company, Data Driven Labs, up and running, and how that worked out. And then we're going to talk about some planning steps, defining our services, pricing those services. We're also going to talk about recurring revenue, finding clients, hiring help, and questions. So we'll have the questions at the end and go through those, and hopefully I'll be able to help you out with those. So first, I want to kind of go over really quick the story of how I got started with my web development business. So I run a web development and analytics type of agency called Data Driven Labs. And it started out with me just doing freelance side gigs. I was working in different jobs. I was working in IT, and I started building websites back when I was in high school. And so this was something I always just kind of did on the side and grabbed little gigs here and there. As I started getting more of those coming in, it started becoming a point where I was able to move full time into doing the freelance. And so I started doing that. And then with my wife, she also learned a whole bunch about how to build websites and all that. She then came on and went full time with me as well. And that's when we kind of turned into an agency, and we brought on some help to help us out. With that, we started growing our services. We expanded beyond just building websites. We realized there's a whole lot of other things we can do in that realm. We're going to talk about those today and talk about how you can do a little more than just building a website or designing a website for somebody. We did go through a name change of branding. We actually used to be called CE Squared, which was a play on a name with our initials, and both of us have the initial CE, so it was kind of a way we played off of that, and we realized nobody really understood what we did, and so we kind of went through and we changed our name and changed our branding, and that was a really big thing. And we are going to talk a little bit about that, about making sure you pick the right branding for what you do, because when I talk about taking the right steps, I think that was one of our steps that we did when we first got started that I look back on and say, I wish we did this from the start. We then grew our recurring revenue, which was a big deal. Because once we started adding all these other services, we were constantly selling. We'll talk a little bit more about how that really changed the way we ran our agency and ran our business. And then as we continued, we hired additional help, and then we just promoted the brand. And we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go on, about how the promotions work. But we've created, a YouTube channel where we post videos and tutorials on there. We also do a lot of webinars such as this one, and we do different webinars of our own to kind of help promote the brand, and obviously through social media channels, and we're a part of a couple social groups for helping businesses grow their services. So that's kind of the overall, that's what Data Driven Labs has become. So it went from just a little freelance side thing all the way up into a full-blown agency that we do full-time now. So I wanted to kind of tell you a little bit about my story before we dived in. But now what I want to do is I want to talk about how we get started if you wanted to create yourself a design and development business. So it's all going to start with that proper planning. A lot of people get really excited when they want to when they make the decision of, hey, I'm going to start a website, a web development agency, and I'm just going to jump right in. I'm going to start building everything and start selling, and I'm going to, I've already got somebody here who wants to buy something, so I'm just going to jump full in and just go at it. And they don't even put anything in place. They just start right away. We're going to talk about what we need to do before we do that, because we want to make sure we start this right and don't just dive in headfirst. So the first thing is you need to know what your personal finances are. And this is one of the biggest things I see a lot of people when they jump in is they don't really take a look at what their personal financial situation is. You want to make sure that there is going to be a safety net, because running a business is hard. And while you may have 5 people lined up right now that want to come on and do work with you, you're not going to turn a profit every single month. There is months that you're going to have that are just going to be bad months. You're not going to make, you're going to not make money. You're going to have to rely on some savings or some money that was packed away when you're getting started. So what we kind of want to talk about is, first, you need to decide how much money do you need on a personal level to survive. And this is planning for unknowns. You don't want to forget about your benefits. I know a lot of people I've talked to that have done the leap. They've left a job where they have health insurance and they have retirement and they have all these things built into their benefit package that they didn't account for. And health insurance is not cheap when you run your own business, and as a sole proprietor, or even as a small business. It's very expensive to get health insurance. And so you want to make sure you kind of price all that out and you know what your number is going to be of what you need to take home. You want to create a safety net. Have about 6 months, I would say, of finances sat off to the side so that you know that you can, have a little bit of area to have a bad month here and there. Have a fallback plan. So, make sure that if it's not working, that you have something that you can go back to, something, don't burn your bridges. Don't, leave your job and burn a bunch of bridges as you go on the way out, because you want to be able to still have that fallback plan if things don't work out. And then, don't get risky with it. One of the biggest things is everyone believes in if you build it, everyone's just going to come, and it's not always that way. We've worked with several people who've gone off to start their own business, and they got a few clients on, and it looked like everything was going great, but then they just could not get any more clients on, and they were able to go on a fallback plan, and they were okay. But if you don't have all these things in place, I would not recommend risking to jump in full time. Now, there are ways you still can do it. You can still build a web design development agency on the side. And that's where we talk about, how much money do you need? It's also how much time do you have available, because there are ways you can start building this before you jump full in. Okay, so now the biggest thing is we got to create a simple business plan. Basically, I always say simple business plan, because when you talk to a lot of people, a lot of business courses out there talk about making this, ironclad business plan that is for your next 6 months to a year, and it's some would go out as up to 5 years and all that. Here's the thing: your business is going to change a lot once you get started. You're going to learn things. You're going to find things. We change up what we do here probably on a quarterly basis. We just actually made a huge shift in a bunch of services that we were offering, and ended doing a whole bunch of different services because we just felt that they weren't working out the way we wanted them to. So when we talk about creating a simple business plan, what are we talking about? We're going to want to figure out, what are our services? What are we going to charge for those? Is there a certain market or niche that we want to focus on? And where are we going to find our clients? So those are going to be the biggest questions, and we're going to kind of dive a little bit more into those here as we go on. But you want to create your plan based off of that and make sure it's very flexible. You don't need to write out every little tiny thing you're going to do, but really just understanding these 4 items is really going to help you put together the next steps. We want to set up all the administrative pieces. So many people, jump into this and they go, "Oh, I'm going to go ahead and create this business. I'm going to start this idea," and they're running it under their own name. So a lot of people will say, "I'm going to call it Chris's Web Design," or something like that, and they just jump in because they haven't thought about setting up the name. They haven't registered their business, so they're technically not legal. They haven't registered, and yes, you can run as a sole proprietor. I would highly recommend looking into an LLC. It does protect you as an individual, because that's the other thing. You don't want to put your personal assets at risk. In this business, you hopefully won't get sued. You don't want to get sued, but we do live in a litigious world where a lot of people, if you build something and their site goes down, they may want to come after you legally, and you don't want them to be able to come after your personal assets. You want them to be able to focus on, you want them to only be able to go after your business assets. So an LLC will help protect you from that. So you're going to want to get all that set up and ready to go ahead of time, because moving things around can get a little difficult if you've already brought some clients on personally. Setting up your accounting software. This is one that I think everyone forgets. They look at it and go, "Oh, well, I can just get people to pay me. I'll just create a quick little invoice in Google Docs and send it over, and that'll be all we use for now. And I'll just write down and keep a little ledger and run it out of my own bank account, my own personal bank account." And that gets really complex, especially as you start to grow. And as you grow, if you're doing this right, you're going to start having a lot of customers coming in. And then now you're trying to pick a accounting software and then trying to transition all your current clients over to that. It becomes a whole hassle that you now have to deal with as you're trying to also grow the business, when it's better to have it all set up in place. And we're going to talk about a couple different accounting softwares out there that one that we use, as well as a couple other ones that are really easy to use that are, a lot of times you can find these accounting softwares. Some are free. Some are as low as I think $10 a month. So there's a couple of those that you can set up really easily and use. Getting your domain and email address set up, and also having a website, even a simple one. You're starting a web design, web development business here. You need a website of your own. And this is the one part, when we started, our website was literally one page because everyone coming to us was from referral base. We weren't trying to sell through our website. So we had just one page, and that one page grew to 5 pages, and that was about it. We didn't have a whole lot going on. Now we have a whole blog. We have, oh man, I don't even know. I think we got probably about 30 or 40 different types of pages for our different services and all that. We have a nice large website now, but when we started, we just had one landing page that just talked about who we were. You want to at least have that because it is a little difficult to sell when someone goes, "Oh, what's your website and domain?" You're like, "Oh, I don't really have one of those. Here's my Gmail address. Just send me an email." You want to have that there, and a Facebook page does not count as a website. Just you make sure that that's not your only way that people are finding you, but that you do have a website in place. All right, so let's talk about services. We want to figure out what those are going to be. And my biggest thing here is don't spread yourself so thin. A lot of times, and I made this mistake, and this is actually one of the things I talk about what we're doing when we just made some switches quarterly. We've jumped in and we've actually cut back on a lot of our services. We had a whole heck of a lot of services, but I found that having too many services spreads you thin, and you end up being, while you have a ton of things you can do, you're never going to be able to be really good at one thing. So make sure that you look at what you're going to offer and you don't go too crazy trying to offer every single thing. You want to just kind of keep it condensed down to the things that you're going to be good at and the things that you can sell. So let's talk about how we define what those services are. So you want to be creative and think outside the box. One of the things, first, what are you good at? There's things that you may know, but you're not great at. The things that you're really good at, that's what you want to sell because that's what people are going to hire you for. Do you have all the resources to perform these services? So if you're planning on, I'm going to offer some specialized photography or things like that, realize if you're going to offer those items, you need to have the equipment to do that. Or maybe if you're going to offer certain design services, make sure you have the right software for that and the right licensing and things like that. Don't just write it down and say, I'll figure it out later. Make sure you already have those resources ready to go to perform those different services. Can you sell these services? Is it something that people are looking to buy, or is this something that nobody's really going to be interested in? And then this is the biggest one. Research and talk to others that do similar services. You'll be surprised with with a lot of small agencies. I sit here and talk to a bunch of people who want to start up agencies that are literally going to be my competitors, and I have no problem sharing most of our tactics that we do and the different things and what we've learned along the way. Doing this webinar right now, because there's so much business out there for the services I offer that I don't look at them as being competitors, because there's always going to be more business to get. So if you go and you talk to others, they're going to tell you some of the things they've learned. They're going to tell you in this area, this doesn't work out very well. Or maybe for this particular niche, they're going to say, your pricing is going to be a little high. You're going to need to come in at this price to be able to bring those on. And then you need to find what those complementary services are going to be. So with your main services, you want to actually offer other things, and not just, if you're going to do web design, we're going to just take, for example, if you're doing web design and web development, there's other complementary services. And so here's some ideas that you can do as examples to offer along with those. So as a web design development business, your clients are going to need maintenance and hosting services. They're going to need someone to keep their website running. Let's be real. They're hiring you to build their website because they don't know how to build a website. Well, most likely they also don't know how to maintain a website. They don't know how to keep it updated. They don't know how to add new content to it. And so offering some kind of maintenance and hosting services, which allow them to keep their website online, it's going to make it a lot easier for them. It allows them to be more hands-off. You're handling the website for them. Marketing and search optimization services. They need to be found. So you can offer services around that, about here's how we can help you with marketing and how we can help you be found in search. Photography and video. If you are a photographer or you are a videographer, this could be a great add-on. I mean, a lot of restaurants we deal with, they have all these great food items and they have no photos of them on their website. And they're like, oh, we'll just go, I'm an Italian restaurant, go pull a stock image of spaghetti. Well, that's not your spaghetti. And so you can offer those as services to come out and say, hey, we're going to come out, we're going to take some photos of your different dishes so we can use them on the website if you're able to offer that. And then other skill sets. There's other things that you're really good at. I'll give you an example. One of the things I love doing, I'm analytics. I'm a data nerd. I love diving into analytics and data. So we've turned that into a service. We offer analytics and web analytics and data analysis as a service that we offer with our agency. So not only will we build your website, but we'll help you figure out how to properly set up tracking and build dashboards around that. So looking at all of those can help you understand different services you can offer. And this is just an example off of the web design development business, but there's a lot of other things that you could offer. And I'd love to hear other ideas, throw them down in the chat. We'll talk about them afterwards of, different other examples of services you can offer. So again, I go back to, remember, there's only one of you. So make sure whatever you are going to offer, that you're going to be able to do this without stretching yourself thin. And so I keep bringing that up because that was the biggest mistake we made. Was we jumped into so many different services and I went, whoa, I can't handle all this. I'm jumping 20 different directions and I can't focus on one thing alone. Our price sheet was like eight pages long because we had so many different services. I couldn't even quote anymore as someone's on the phone. They'd be like, how much does this cost? I'm like, I don't know. I got to go look it up because I've got so many different services we do. So just don't spread yourself thin. And then let's talk about pricing, right? You got to find that right price point, because if you're too high, you're not going to get any customers. If you're too low, you're not going to make any money. And so you need to first figure out, what are you worth, right? So what's your skill level? And how much does your competition charge? So when you're talking with those other companies and you're getting started and you're researching this, ask them, what do you charge? How do you charge people? And a lot of times they'll probably give you a range. They may not tell you exact, but they'll give you a range, and you kind of get an idea of what the pricing is of these different people in your area. You can also shop. Reach out and just ask, hey, how much do you charge to do this? And how much do you charge for a simple website? And you can ask these questions and see if they'll come back. Sometimes they'll want to get a full consultation on. That may be a little harder, but sometimes they'll come straight back and say, a simple 5-page website ranges between this and this. And then you have an idea of what your competitors are charging. What are your overhead costs? This is a big one that a lot of people forget to look at. Remember, you've got taxes. And the IRS will find you. You're not going to get away with not paying those taxes. So make sure you take into account, that can be as high as 30%. And that's just on the federal level, depending what state you're in. I'm lucky enough to be in Florida, where we don't have state taxes on the businesses, but some locations have higher taxes. I know one of my friends who runs a business in California has a very large amount of taxes that they get charged on top of the federal tax. So just make sure you know what those numbers are going to be, so that you don't have all of your profits going straight back to taxes. And then also fees, credit card fees, software fees, administrative fees. You've got that software we talked about that you had to get in place. That costs some money to have that in place. Accounting fees, even if you hired an accountant to help with your taxes, which I highly suggest you do, because our accountant we hired actually finds ways to even get his money back sometimes, ways that I would have, not known about. And he calls us up and tells us, hey, do you know this program exists? This is going to help save you some money. So, take all of those overhead costs into account when you're looking at these. Also, what would it cost to contract your service out? We go back to that spreading yourself thin. You may hit a point where you start bringing on a ton of clients. Maybe 1 month you go to an expo for that particular niche you're in, and you bring on 20 new clients. Well, you can't handle all those clients, and you don't want to turn them away. So one of the things that you could do is you can actually contract and have someone come in and help you. So make sure that when you put your pricing together, that you take into account, what does a contractor cost for me to hire? If a contractor is going to charge me $40 an hour, then I need to make sure that I'm making more than $40 an hour, because remember, I have my overhead costs, I have a little bit of profit I want to make, so we're going to have to make sure that we include all of that. And then, as we just talked about, make sure that you have that profit margin on there. A lot of people look at it and go, well, I'm going to charge what I'm making per hour. That's my profit. No, that's technically you're the contractor at that point. So let's say you can find a contractor to do the work at $40 an hour, and you get your taxes and everything in there, and you're going to price yourself. You're going to say, oh, well, it'll be $15 worth of overhead on there, so I'm going to charge $55 an hour. Well, now if you have to hire somebody, now you're not making anything. So what you want to do is you want to add, say, okay, $55 an hour. I also want to make a profit on that. I want to make at least, an additional $15 an hour as well. So we're going to look at, let's see, do the math here, $70 an hour, $75 an hour, maybe let's say $20 profit, right? Per hour. So now, yes, when you're doing the work, you're making a lot more money because you're getting that contractor rate and you're getting that profit. But make sure that profit is always added on there. You can use that profit as a negotiating piece too if you're going to be doing the work. That's also an area that you can kind of also negotiate pricing in. And we're going to talk a little bit about that too. So there's different ways you can do pricing. There's hourly base, project base, and value based pricing. You can combine these, experiment with them, have fun with them. Let's just talk real quick about the different types. So hourly pricing. You can do a flat hourly price. So everything is billed at the same hourly rate. This is the easiest way to do it because you just have one flat rate. I charge $100 an hour, and it's going to take me 10 hours to do this project, so it's $1,000. Easy. Super easy to do that. Every service is billed at that same rate. So no matter what, if they're using your agency time, this is what it costs. Then you have variable hourly pricing. So this is where different services are billed at different hourly rates. So you can say, well, design services are billed at this rate, content writing is at this rate, and development is at this rate. This can get a little more complex if you have the right accounting software. This may not be that complex to do, but it does get a little more complex. We originally did variable hourly pricing, and we've moved more to a flat hourly pricing. And I'll explain that because we actually do a hourly pricing mixed with project-based pricing, and thrown a little bit of the value-based pricing in there. So I'll explain how we did that in just a second for us. For project-based pricing, one of the, this is where you have one price for the entire project. It's easy to quote. Also, you don't have clients trying to pick apart your quotes. They don't go and say, well, you're saying it's going to take 30 hours to build this piece, and you're saying design is going to take 10 hours. Well, that seems like a whole lot of design that they're going to pick apart. Remember, you're the expert here. You know how long it's going to take. And you're not going to sit here and tell the plumber that comes over to your house exactly how long he should be spending on each part of his job. So by giving just a one project price, it makes it a little easier for them. They're not trying to pick apart your hours. They're just going to look at the price and say, okay, this is what it costs to build this site. All right, that it is what it is. And then you have value-based pricing. So this is, there's two ways to do this. You can base it on the value it adds. So this could be extremely complex because it requires you to really understand that niche. And it can be hard to sell to a budget-minded client, someone who's looking for the right price. But that could be where you come in and you go, well, if I build this for you, this is going to double your sales. And right now you're doing $10,000 a month in sales. And so now you're going to do $20,000 a month in sales. And so I feel of value, this is going to be worth $30,000 for me to build this for you, even though really it's only going to cost you what would be about $10,000 in labor. You come back and say, well, I'm going to say it's $30,000 because they'll be willing to pay it because it's going to add that kind of benefit to them. And then the other one is, and this is one I do not recommend to ever do, revenue sharing. And the reason for that is it relies on client honesty. This happens all the time. One of the games I play, I've been playing for 20 years now. Just recently had this with a big gaming company where they recently found out that the one company was lying to them and to the tune of millions of dollars about the revenue that was coming in on a revenue sharing. And they had to go through a whole legal method to find out that, yes, they were lying to them. And therefore not paying out what they should have for revenue. So that one's a really complex one. And I wouldn't always recommend doing revenue sharing when you're doing that. So before I jump into some examples on this, I'll just kind of tell you what we do. We do a hourly pricing with a project-based pricing for projects. So when you come on, what we do is we create a scope of work. And what I do is I have my hourly rate that I know what we want to make per hour. And what I do is I get from all of my different contractors that will be working on it and staff, we go in and we say, how many hours is it going to take you to do your portion of the project? We put all those hours together. And then what we do is we take the hours and we multiply that out, or hourly rate, multiply it out by the hours that project's going to take. We put a little bit of buffer on there for project management time, as well as we put a little bit of buffer on there for unknowns. And that's how we get to that. Now, we do sometimes throw in a little bit of value-based pricing. If we look at that and go, well, that number's could be a little bit higher because of the type of industry this is for. And I wouldn't even say it's value-based. It's more looking at the type of client. Sometimes we'll charge a little bit more, kind of a difficult client fee, I guess you would say. If I recognize in the beginning that this client is going to be extremely particular and everything is going to go back for multiple rounds of revisions, or that this client is going to need a lot of hand holding through the process and it's going to take more hours, we go ahead and we kind of build that into our quotes. So it's a little bit all over the place how we do it, but we do everything kind of comes back down to hourly pricing, and any of our overages or anything like that are always built just as an hourly price. So all of our contracts contain your hourly price is going to be this much for anything beyond scope. Okay. Some examples. This is where I'm sure the chat is going to blow up because everyone has their different rates that they feel they want to that should be charged. This comes out to what can you make for your services. We go back to your skill set. This is just ballparking from working with different people. I've seen new freelancers start out between $35 an hour to $60 an hour. With experienced freelancers getting more than that. Agency, so once you're more of an agency, it's not just you working on it. You've got contractors, you've got staff, you've got that happening. You can normally bill yourself at $80 to $150 an hour. If you're an experienced freelancer, you can sometimes even kind of go up to the agency rate because you can brand yourself as an agency. And that's what we were talking about, the branding earlier. By changing, it more into a brand and having putting your contractors on as staff and things like that, you can really kind of go more towards the agency rate as long as your work backs that up. And then high-end agencies have been between $150 to $400 an hour. I worked at one that was $300, charged $300 an hour to do work for people. There's some pretty high-end agencies out there that can charge pretty high amounts. Project-based pricing, this really comes down to what type of site. You can do, examples would be like, we can build you a simple 5-page templated website for somewhere in a range of $1,500 to $2,500, or maybe it's a 5-page website with some design added to it, $2,500 to $5,000. A small e-commerce site that's templated, could be about this rate. And we've done one-off landing pages, and we come in on landing pages depending what kind of functionality they need. If it's just a landing page, or if it's a page that requires a whole form, contact form that integrates into Facebook leads or something like that, changes the price. But, we start around, between $500 to $1,000 just for a simple landing page. It really comes down to what you can get. Value base, you can look at increased of sales and doing like a percentage of the increased sales, a tiered approach saying if you make this much, then you pay this much. Goal approach. So if we actually double your sales, then we get a bonus on that. Also looking at number of users, so a fee per user or a tiered approach there. Again, I'm not a big fan of value-based pricing. I'm more about sticking with just this is what it costs. If you do really well from what we did, awesome. The value-based to me, I'm not a big fan of myself, but you can do it that way if you want. So we talked about all the stuff with doing a project, but recurring revenue is really the biggest thing that I like to focus on. projects are hit or miss. We want to keep cash flow coming in even when we're not getting those projects. We've had months here where we've had a flood of projects. We were just like freaking out. Oh my goodness, look at all these coming in. Our biz dev person was just selling things left and right. Every day we were signing a new contract. It was exciting. And then we would go through a dry spell. A great example is all of this that's going on right now in the world. When this started, we were actually still doing okay, and we had projects coming in. But then as things got a little more serious, going into April, and people started realizing this is going to be a little bit bigger hit on things, and a lot of places started having limited work hours and so forth. We then hit that. Nobody wanted to start a new project. That was not on the top of anyone's list. Everyone's kind of holding on to what cash they have inside their company. We had no new projects coming on. And this is where the recurring revenue really saved us. So recurring revenue, one of the things it'll do is it's going to improve your relationship with a client, because that client is working with you on an ongoing basis instead of just one project. So it's not, think about when you buy a car. You go, you talk with the car salesman, you get to know the car salesman, you guys get to know each other, you're talking with everybody, and then you never see him again. So slowly you start to forget who he is. And a year or two, three later, when you're trying to recommend him to somebody else, you're like, yeah, I went to this dealership, but I don't remember his name. I had to look it up somewhere. You don't even remember him. Versus if you were working with that person on a monthly basis, you would still know who they are. So it creates a great relationship, creates a steady stream of income. So we're talking about having that money still flowing in even when there's no new projects coming in. Kind of allows for a vacation. I say that sort of because most likely you're selling services that you still have to do some things on. So just realize that you still have to do some things, but it could allow for you not to have a bunch of projects keeping you from not being able to go on vacation. You may be able to go and work from the hotel for 3 hours in the morning or 2 hours in the morning, just doing your recurring stuff, or even bring someone on to help you with that. And you don't have to keep selling every day. Always be out there. You have to always be selling, right? Well, that gets tiring. It gets hard to do. And it allows you to take a little break when you need to have that mental break and say, I just need to take a week off from selling and just relax for a minute. And the recurring's there to keep your bills paid. You can create, so what you could do for recurring is you can offer a whole bunch of different services. So like WordPress maintenance, such as updates, small changes, optimizations, website hosting, social media, ongoing marketing like SEO, PPC, and those different things. You can offer all of those. Kind of give you an example. This is the plan we offer. This was our price that we found that works the best for us. Again, look at your niche, look at who you're working with, come up with your price that you think would work best. But you'll see we have the basic plan, which is literally light hosting. We do updates to WordPress and themes, daily backups, uptime monitoring. Versus the advanced, we have a lot of other cool stuff in there. We do with speed optimization, content CDNs, security, website security, malware stuff, as well as we even include 1 hour of support time. And so they have 1 hour support time, and then if they go over that, they can then pay our hourly rate that's negotiated. So that's kind of what we've built in. A lot of the basic plan does not require a ton of work on our side, and I'm going to show you kind of why in just a second. But it's based off the tools we use, so you can automate most of these things. And like a few tools that we use for most of the maintenance items, we use the GoDaddy Pro tool set. This formerly known as Managed WP. It is a amazing product for doing updates. I'll actually show you really quick in just a second what else it does, but it helps to add that recurring service very easily. The hosting, you see we offer hosting on there. We use bulk plan hosting providers for that. So there's a lot of different hosting providers. You can go out there and you can purchase a bulk set of sites. So you get 50 websites for this price. And so we have a hosting built out. If you don't want to sell hosting, there's reselling hosting you can do. GoDaddy has a reseller program, as well as other hosting providers have different reselling programs out there. So you can look at those and you can just do a reseller program and then you're not involved at all. It depends just where you're at on knowing about hosting. CDN services. So we use Bunny CDN. We put all of our clients on it. We pay the bill for it. But we install it and get it all set up. It comes out really cheap, and we're able to offer that. And optimization plugins. So we use WP Rocket. We know how to set up WP Rocket really well. We have a bulk licensing on WP Rocket. And so we install that onto all of our client sites that are on our optimization plan and get their sites running smooth, fast, and a little bit better. So those are some of the tool sets you can use. Like I said, when you're trying to offer maintenance, this is the biggest recurring revenue. I tell every agency, if you're not doing this, you need to be doing this. And they're like, well, I don't want to sit here and do all these updates. I don't want to have to do all of that. We use GoDaddy Pro to do this. It has a ton of free things in there: manage updates, monthly backups, one-click login, the manual performance checks, security checks, collaboration, analytics. And then you also have some premium features in there. So you got the backups that you can do. You can do uptime monitoring. All these different things this is literally a list of items that you can add onto your services and resell these as part of a package to your clients. That, hey, we're offering all of these things to you. I'll show you my two favorite features real quick of it. One-click admin login. So we have a lot of clients that we manage their sites, and keeping all their login information is incredibly difficult when I need to quickly jump into their site, into admin. I can just log in to the tool set, and I can go in there and just hit WP admin, and it auto logs me in. You can also set up any contractors or staff the ability to do this so that you don't have to share passwords to people's websites. So this is a great way, great piece I like. And the other item I like is, I just want to show you here if it'll play. Let's see. There it goes. This is the safe updates. So you see there's a ton of updates across a whole bunch of sites right here. And literally come in here, we just hit that we want a visual comparison. I'm going to speed this video up, but you hit safe update. And what it basically does is it goes in, creates a backup of all the sites, goes in, updates all the plugins on those sites. And we'll speed up here because it takes a minute to go through all of it. So there it goes through the updates. And then what it gives you is this little compare. I'll let it do its thing. And you can kind of go side by side with the slider and see if there's anything that changed, as well as click that link to go over to that site and make sure everything's good. And if it's not good, you can actually come down, and I'll show you. Here it goes. You can hit restore, and it will restore that backup that you took. So this is a way you can easily offer updates. We run updates on over 100 websites in a matter of about 10, 15 minutes of going through here. So this is a great tool to offer those services at a bulk rate across all of those for all of your clients. And I think next week, switch, there it goes. Next week, I think the webinar that's coming up will actually talk a little bit more about that tool as well. So, make sure you tune in to learn more about what that tool can do. So now you have to find your different clients to sell to. This is an art form. I'll be honest, we brought on a business development person because while I'm not a salesperson, so he's really good at that. But some of the places that I would go was networking groups, community meetups, local businesses, friends and family, even partnering up with other agencies. And this is a big one for us. Those other agencies I told you about earlier that you can talk to, they'll help you out. A lot of times they'll get to a point where they have overflow work. We've done that with us. We've hit points where I'm like, we actually recently with SEO, we decided to outsource that. Instead of doing that in-house, we decided to work with one of my friend's agencies who that's all she wants to do is SEO. And so I said, well, why am I selling this and doing this as a service? I'd rather just sell your services under our brand. And so we do a white label partnership with her, and we sell her services under our brand. So we're not actually having to do those services. So you can also partner up. We have other clients that are, massive agencies that get these smaller sites for small businesses and go, we don't want to even touch a small business, and we don't mind taking on small business. So they'll just give them to us. No, they don't want anything for it. They just don't want to tell them we can't help you. They want to be able to have somebody they can say, hey, go talk to these guys. They can probably help you. And so partner with some of those other agencies. You can meet them at the networking groups, WordPress meetups, even part of the GoDaddy Pro community here. You'll find a ton of people who may be able to help you out with some of that and take, either send or take some of your work for you. As you grow, just don't overwhelm yourself. You may want to bring on some help. You don't have to hire a full-time employee. You can always do contractors, partner with other agencies like I just talked about, and partner with other services. There's actually other services. So we talked about the maintenance. There's companies that's all they do is they do maintenance for agencies, and they handle all those pieces for you. So you can then just pay them and they will handle all those updates. They have their own system put together for it, and you can reach out and just use those companies as well. So you don't have to always, when you're adding these other services on, you don't have to provide them. You can just resell them. There are ones out there. And again, talk to your networking group and find who those are. Make sure you're still making positive cash flow when you hire someone. So, don't go find a contractor that's like, oh, this guy's amazing at what he does. I'm going to hire him on, and then find out that you've grandfathered everybody in at a lower rate than what he's charging you, and now you're losing money. So make sure that you get a quote from your contractor before giving a quote to the client to make sure, you're like, oh, I think this will take 10 hours, and you quote it out and you get a signed quote, and you come back and your contractor goes, yeah, that's going to probably actually take about 15 hours to do. Well, now you just, you're going to lose some money on there. So just make sure that you think about all those when you're working with somebody else. So you want to find the right tools that work for you. I'm going to kind of go through really quick a couple of these tools. So finances, we use Zoho Books and Zoho Subscriptions. Subscriptions is for our recurring revenue. We absolutely love using those. We do use the Zoho Suite for all of our things. I will say there's going to be frustrations with all of these, and Zoho has its own list of frustrations with us at times. But for us, this is what we found that works. Other ones out there is QuickBooks Online and Xero. Those are the other big ones. All of those are great. They all have their own benefits. If you're going to be bringing on an accountant right away, talk to your accountant, because your accountant may have a preference. I know our accountant prefers Xero, but we were already using Zoho Books, so they learned how to use Zoho Books for us, but they prefer Xero. So just, take a look at the different ones out there and find which one works for your pricing and works with your accountant. Stay organized with your sales funnel. Don't try to just rely on emails. You need reminders. You need all of this, especially if you're doing your own sales. You can use CRM. Zoho CRM is a good one out there. I think the Zoho CRM has a free version. HubSpot, Bitrix 24, Close.io. Those are a couple out there that you can look at using. Really just look around, see what works best for you. There's a whole bunch of these out there. If you just search for CRM, you'll find some. Creating proposals and contracts, you do need to get everything in writing. You can do this simply with a Google Docs and an e-sign. It's just actually what we're doing now. We use Google Docs and we use Zoho Sign just because we have the whole Zoho suite. So we use Zoho Sign to send out the contracts. It gets e-signed, gets right back to us. We have it all legal and put together. You can also use things like Proposify, PandaDocs, Quiller. Those are also some really cool tools. Go take a look at them. They do some really neat things with proposals. And then my last big one, my biggest pet peeve, if you're setting up a professional agency, set up a professional email address. Don't just be someone at Gmail or someone, funny enough, at AOL. I actually had someone tell me they offer web design services, and they gave me an AOL email address. And I'm like, what? I didn't even know they still did an email. There's different places you can get email from. You can, GoDaddy has emails. Your hosting provider has email. What we use G Suite. I think that's what they're calling themselves. They've changed the name like 30 times now. Basically the Google email for business. I think they're called G Suite right now. I can't remember. I don't even know anymore. And then Office 365 as well. And I think you can actually get Office 365 through your GoDaddy dashboard if you're using GoDaddy. And I don't know if they have a discount, but they'll help you get it all set up as well. But those are the different ones you can use. Take a look at them, see which one works best if you don't already have an email, but make sure it's at your .com name. So don't just go grab your free email address and try and sell through it. It doesn't look as professional. All right, so that was a lot of information. I do want to jump in and handle some questions here. And let's see, how do I switch back? All right, so now I am on screen. I can see the questions.
I'm going to go ahead and read those off if you want.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So the top one here is how to create a web page. What advice do you have to give on that?
So my advice there is if you're looking to create a web page, you know, one of the biggest things I say is work with, and this goes with any of those services. If it's something that you're going to sell, but you're not 100% sure how to be an expert in it, team up with somebody who is. Find another agency that is an expert in that. Find someone out there that you can work with that can help you put those together. And that would probably be what I would say. And then work on learning the skill. There's lots of online tutorials and things like that that will also run through those different things. And there's a whole lot of webinars that will be right here on GoDaddy Pro that you'll be able to follow along with as well that will go over a lot of those tips.
Yeah, absolutely. As you probably imagined, we actually had quite a few questions about pricing as well. Some of it was probably answered by your slides. You were super thorough, but I'm going to go ahead and read a few of those, and then maybe we can like recap some of the things that you talked about. First one is how to price a WordPress care/maintenance service.
Yeah, so we talked about that a little bit. You know, really just make sure all your costs are covered. So you saw like we had our pricing plans, which were, you know, our basic was at $59. You know, our hard cost on that with our hosting package and the fees that we pay on the GoDaddy Pro tool set and a few of the other tools we have in there for everything. You know, our hard cost comes in at about $10 per site. And then we have the rest of that there is our profit margin and covering our hourly labor. So just make sure you're covering all of those pieces in what you're doing. And it does scale a little easier. So the more you have, it makes it actually a little bit cheaper as you add more in.
Yeah, definitely. Don't forget to charge for your time.
Yes. Big one.
I'm going to skip around a little bit so we can talk about all of the pricing questions together. We had a question. What if you're not developing, you're just designing, like you're not hand coding anything? Do you charge less?
It goes back to what do you feel you're worth? You know, we work with all kinds of different designers. I know some designers that charge really high rates, and I know some that are a little bit cheaper. Look at we go back to what do you need to make? What do you need to take home? And what do you feel you're worth? And talk to those around you and see. You usually as a designer or a developer or any other skill set, you know where you fall. You know, I'm probably about as good as this person, and this person. Find out what those people charge. And that will kind of give you an idea of maybe where you fall and what you can charge. You know, I know there's some brand designers that, you know, I mean, there's people, I think, I was reading something about FedEx with their logo. I'm going to ruin the logo for you if you didn't know this, but between the E and the X, there's an arrow inside of there. And that's kind of how they get everything's moving forward. I believe they paid like over $1 million or something like that to have that logo designed for them from a design firm. And it literally is just text, it seems. So, you know, it really comes down to what you feel your worth is and what your clients are willing to pay for those services. But absolutely, a designer can charge as much as a developer if they feel, you know, that's where their worth is. Just know where you think you fall on your value.
Yeah, I would second that. I know a lot of people think that if they just do design and they're a visual designer, not a coder, that maybe they undervalue themselves to a certain degree, but there's actually a lot that goes into design, a lot of strategy that goes into that, especially if you're doing research and, you know, doing user experience and things like that. So I would definitely like charge what you're worth. You're worth a lot. So hand coding is great too. They're just two different sides of the same thing. Just thought I'd throw my 2 cents in there. I do see a few people are needing to leave here pretty soon for other events. So before I continue with the questions here, I'd like to call out 2 different things. There's a poll at the bottom of your screen just to rate this webinar, you know, how satisfied you were with it. It's very simple, should only take you a second. I use that feedback personally to curate topics and guest speakers and things like that too, the things that might interest you and the people you might want to see. come back and talk with us again. So if you have a few seconds just to take that poll there for me, I would really appreciate it. And then I also wanted to point out that there's a button at the bottom of the screen as well if you want to join GoDaddy Pro. It's been mentioned a couple times already, both in the chat and by Chris in his presentation here. If you're interested in looking into that at all, it's a free program. It doesn't cost you anything. There are a couple of very cheap premium features to it, but just right out of the gate, it's a free program. So that's there for your convenience. If you were interested at all in what people were talking about, you can click that too. Moving on to the pricing questions. I don't want to keep you guys too long. I think Robert added a little bit as well to the conversation around design. So if anybody is interested in continuing that, that's in the chat. But we've got a question from Robert here. For project-based pricing, do you create a blended rate and estimate total effort? I think that's asking for some clarification on what you were talking about with your own pricing structure.
Yeah, so I use the hourly to get myself to that point of understanding where I'm going to even start with the project pricing. And then I look at all other pieces and I kind of create. And so I only present to the customer the final price. I don't tell them that, oh, well, that's going to be a 45-hour project, and just make math simple, say $100 an hour and say, that'll be $4,500. Or my price is $4,500, and then we do have sales people and stuff. So we'll then add to that to make sure we're covering their commission and things like that, and any materials or pieces that we need to go with it. So we kind of do that. And I did want to mention real quick on the pricing, if you do negotiate pricing down, one really quick tip on that I meant to mention in the presentation is, don't ever just lower your prices. I learned this from someone else. If you come in, let's say you come in at $5,000 for something and someone's like, that's a little too much. And you go, okay, well, I'll do it for $4,500. Now you've just told them that either you were charging them too much, or you've just told them that they can negotiate any price with you on anything going forward. And they're going to continue to go, oh, well, then can I get it for $4,000 instead of $4,500? And because you had no problem dropping it down to that. I always take something away. So I always say, well, we can lower the price this much, but if we lower the price, we're not going to be able to build that interactive contact form. We're just going to have to do a basic contact form on this site. And while yes, it may only change my time on it by 30 minutes, by taking a little piece away, it tells them that sure, we're open to negotiate prices, but the services are going to change a little bit based off of, because you're paying for this level of service and now you want to pay less, you're going to get a little bit less of service for that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I'm trying to make sure I've got all of the pricing questions here. And I think I do. Let's do top investments for software and services like GoDaddy, WordPress, and e-commerce. Like, I think they're wanting to know, it's from Matthew Tanner. I think he's wanting to know, like, what are your top investments for software then?
So software, we have Beaver Builder, an agency license for Beaver Builder, just because we do a lot of small business sites, so we can spin up a website pretty quick for a client using Beaver Builder if they want something cheap and quick. Then we use WP Rocket is one of our main plugins that we use for a lot of things. We use Bunny CDN. Software-wise, we have the whole Zoho suite, just because we use Zoho subscription, Zoho books, and Zoho CRM, and we use Zoho Sign. So because we use all of those, the pricing came out cheaper for us to go for their whole suite, even though we don't use everything in that suite. Trying to think other tools that we use on a daily basis. Zoom. We do have a paid copy of Zoom. We actually use them for our phone lines as well. They actually have a service called Zoom Phone. So if you don't have a ton of phone lines, it may be cheaper to use that service. So you have a phone line, virtual phone line. And then, of course, for the video conferencing pieces. Trying to think what else. I think that's pretty much some of the main things that we use.
Awesome. So I do have a question here too from Caleb. What should we use for accounting to get set up correctly? Are you doing that through Zoho as well? Do they have an option for that?
So to make sure you're doing it correctly, you want to use a solid accounting software that is supported by most accountants. Zoho Books is, QuickBooks Online is, and Xero is. Those are the ones that almost all certified public accountants will use and can use, just because of the way the ledger system works, reconciliation, things like that. If accounting is not a skill set, is not something that you ever want to touch, find somebody who can do bookkeeping for you. Bookkeepers are cheaper than accountants. A lot of accounting firms will have bookkeeping services attached to them. So we do our own bookkeeping, and we just use our accountants for the tax side, just because I know a little bit about bookkeeping. But you can, I even know our accountant, they offer bookkeeping services as well. So if that's not your cup of tea, and if you're just getting started, I know with my accounting agency, if you're just getting started, they'll literally set you up. I think they set you up on Xero because that's their preferred one. They'll literally set you all up with all the bookkeeping and everything. So just rely on those experts. But those are the 3 softwares that I would recommend that most accountants like. And just talk to your accountant. Your accountant may have other ones they want you to use.
Awesome, thanks. So we've got a question from Mark. How do you market your design business? How do potential customers find you?
So with us, it's mostly been word of mouth. Other things that we've done is, doing the webinars like this. It gets our name out there. So we do those as well. We write guest posts. We speak at a lot of conferences. That's where we've got a large amount of our business is speaking at conferences, because when you get up at a conference and you teach people a lot of these things. So I'll get up and I'll do a lot of talks on analytics and things like that. People listen to your talk and they go, wow, that's a lot of work. And then they go, but you sound like you know it. So let me go talk to you about this. And so that's how we find a lot of people, is just getting out and speaking. And that could be with speaking at your local business chamber of commerce. We've gotten a couple clients out of that just by going and speaking at our local chamber of commerce of things you should be doing for your website or things you should be doing online. And so we get on there and we speak to them, and then they go, that's cool, we're just going to hire you. So we find a lot of speaking opportunities is where we get a lot of ours from. You can do Facebook ads. You can do, PPC is really expensive, but if you have the budget for it, you could do those. But again, I think just getting your name out there, speaking in front of groups, I found to be one of the biggest things. And that can be virtually or, at the at events and meetups.
That's awesome. So Justin Neely wanted to know, what was one of the most fun projects you've worked on?
Oh, man. We built a car website for car events. And it aggregated all the different, like Lamborghinis and car shows and all that stuff, like Ferraris and all that. And so we got to work with some pretty cool people, and we got to find out about all these different, I did not know there were so many car shows that were going on until we started aggregating these, and we put this all together, and I was like, this is really cool. Like, and I used that site. I used the own site that I created to literally go and find all these really cool events that we started going to throughout the week, because I was like, oh, I did not know this was that easy to find.
That is really cool. Yeah, it's always good when you learn something new through your work, something you wouldn't have ever expected to do. So I know we have a few people who are newer to the industry here on the webinar. Hopefully some of you are still with us as we've passed the hour mark. But one asked a question. He says, total newbie to this early, I'm using he as a general term, sorry, they say, total newbie to this. How do you say if you're a designer versus a developer?
It depends where you're at. I laugh at this. Some of you in this room will probably know where I'm going with this, but even as a WordPress developer, if I go to a .NET conference, or I go to people who write in assembly, or and all these different things, and I tell them, oh, I'm a WordPress developer, they go, you're not a developer. There's different levels of people who look at it as one way or the other. I think you call it what you call yourself, what you think that you are and what you feel that you can do. I do say be careful if you do not know how to even touch code at all. I would be careful about telling people you're a developer, because then if they bring the right person on the call, even who knows a little bit, they could then quickly discredit you and you may lose that ability. Using tools like Beaver Builder and things like that, you can almost drag and drop and lay out websites inside of there. And that's going to be more of a designer area. Development is where you can kind of get into the code and you can start, changing some CSS or writing your own PHP template files or creating a custom plugin. That's kind of about where I say it's at. A lot of times we don't even tell our clients, we don't even say development. And that's kind of what I was talking about, the project base. We just say, we're going to build you a website at this price. And we don't tell them when we're using a developer, a designer, or just somebody who, we have just people who are good with Beaver Builder, because it's just a quick Beaver Builder site. So it's one of those, it's hard to say exactly what you call a developer because everyone kind of calls it something different and at a different level.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like the client doesn't know the difference most of the time. They just want to know what you're going to produce for them.
Yeah.
So, and I think that kind of partially answers Becca's question. She said, so a designer can freelance as a web designer as successfully as a coder.
Yes. Matter of fact, our designer that we use for our agency is not full time with us. He is a contractor with us, and he actually contracts for 5 other agencies, four or five other agencies, and he does a full time living off of working as a freelancer for those 5 different agencies. And he makes, he fills up all 40 hours of his week just designing. So yes, you 100% could be just a design firm. But again, that's where I go back to the whole partnering. If you're going to be a design firm, make sure that you've reached out and you found a company, a development agency that can build your designs that you trust, so that when you do find that one person who wants more than a designer, like, okay, that's nice, you can design it, but I also want the whole website. You have somebody that you can partner with, and you don't even have to resell it. You can say, I'm going to design it, and then I'm going to hand you off. We actually have a couple designers, freelance designers that do that. They design it, and then they hand it off, and they say, Data Driven Labs will do the development of it, and then they hand it over to us.
That's really awesome. So we got another question that kind of slipped in here about the pricing, asking, do you design or code WP? And if so, what would you charge for the difference? And I think I'm just going to go ahead and recap what we already talked about, in that there's not necessarily a difference in charging between design and coding. Just pick one of the pricing models that Chris shared, and based on your skill set or what value you're going to be able to offer and how long it's going to take you to do that, just like develop your own pricing system based on that. It's not going to matter whether you're doing design or development either way. Is that right, Chris? Did I get it right? Yeah,
we charge our hourly rate that we charge it's a flat hourly rate. And it covers both design and development, regardless of which one you go with, because it's high. It's set high enough that it's higher than what our designer and developer contractors, what our cost is for them. It has all our margins and everything built into them. And it's just easier to quote when it's just one price.
Right. Tyron wanted to know, have you tried Elementor before, and would you recommend it?
So we like Beaver Builder because we've been using it for a long time. Elementor, we use it for several of our sites as well because we've inherited them. Elementor is also great, and I enjoy using it. It's a very similar experience, just things, instead of being here, it's here. So it's a very similar experience to Beaver Builder. And both of them are great tools to use, especially if you're a designer and you're not a hardcore developer. They're really great for laying out and building your sites. Of the different page builder systems, those are the 2 that I would recommend. There's other ones that I would highly not recommend. We won't go into who they are, but I highly recommend Elementor and Beaver Builder if you're looking at a page builder. We use Beaver Builder, Elementor, and then they're pretty much on the same page in my book, ease of use wise and so forth.
Yeah, I think when it comes to page builders, it's probably just going to be trying different ones and a matter of preference as far as that goes. But I do know that somebody is going to be holding a webinar on different different page builders. Someone from our Pro Experts group, if you're not familiar with that, it's a group of GoDaddy Pro users who give us product feedback and share like a significant amount of expertise with us. I do have a link for that here. I'm just going to go ahead and give Beth a shout out because she does a great job. If you guys are interested in learning more about the different page builders, consider going to her webinar. She's great at having conversations about that sort of thing. So not to take any attention away from Chris or from our webinar program, but I figured I'd give her a shout out since, you know, at least one person seems interested in that topic.
Yeah, Beth is awesome. I love her webinars.
So final question. I know you've done a lot of work here, but we have one last one. Robert wants to know, would implementer be a good word for, I think we were talking about titles designer versus developer and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something you just, you know, kind of play with and see what works best. You know, we just kind of say that we're going to build a website for you. You know, we notice it depends who your clients you're working with. I notice really it's only agencies that look at design and development and all those titles. Everyone else just, you know, are you going to build a website for me? So, you know, a lot of people I've noticed search-wise look for a website designer to design their website, and not a website developer, just from our own marketing sense. So like we kind of use the terms hand in hand. So when we're advertising to, you know, like the local business networking group, we'll actually use that we're small business website design, because that's what we noticed that group uses. But we noticed that larger corporations look for website developers. So even though they're all just looking for you to build a website. So that's kind of, it depends what market you're looking at. You know, and then other areas we just advertise that we do small business websites, and that's what we leave it at. So
yeah, so know your audience, do your keyword research. Right. Well, I think that's all we have here. You shared a lot of fantastic information. I was really excited about this webinar when we started planning it. I was just like, yes, this is going to be great. And it was. In fact, it exceeded my expectations. And I think we got one more question floating in here. I hate to keep you. Someone asked, I am sure you have to be in the know of the businesses in your specific area. I think that was more a contribution than an ask.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up and let everyone go here. So any final words, Chris?
I just, you know, starting your own agency and building your own agency up is probably the coolest thing you can do. Just do your homework, do your research, don't jump in too fast. And also realize you're going to make mistakes. Look at every mistake as a learning opportunity. I think that's the biggest thing. I don't look at anything that we did and go back and go, oh man, I can't believe we did that. I look at it and go, I'm so glad we learned our lessons from that and that we can share those experiences with others so they don't do it as well. So everything is a learning opportunity, not a mistake.
That's great. Thanks so much for joining us, Chris. I'd love to have you back again another time.
Awesome.
All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and sign off. Have a good one.